Today, I'm joined by Jeff Kolez, a tech professional turned divorce coach for fathers who is on a mission to help men rebuild their lives after divorce. Jeff's story is one of transformation. He spent years mastering systems in his career, but struggled to master himself. Divorce forced him to confront his pain head on, leading him to shed old patterns and rebuild from the ground up. Now, as the founder of Divorce Daddy, Jeff empowers divorced fathers to navigate this challenging time ethically, reclaim their power, and create a meaningful, fulfilling life. Let's dive into his inspiring journey. So take it. Welcome to the Don't Pick the Scab podcast, with the premise of connecting men over 40 with the tools and community to thrive in their divorce recovery, either before, during, or after a divorce. Check it out. Jeff?
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate it. That's a great introduction.
Hey, I worked on that, man.
Yeah, so I don't even know that my story starts or ends with my divorce. I think it starts way earlier than that, like in the way I was raised. And by the time I got to a marriage, I don't even know that I knew what a healthy relationship looked like. So it's perpetuating that pattern forward. And by the time I got into that relationship, I think I was so starved for that connection that I was willing to sacrifice who I was in order to have that relationship. I think I attracted a low compatible, low quality partner. And I don't mean she's a bad person. I just mean it was not a good fit for either of us, really. And it just was a toxic relationship from the start. The relationship ended. She decided to end it. And I left with absolutely nothing. We owned a house together, but there was very little equity in it. There wasn't a lot to fight over. But somehow the divorce lasted 6, 7, I can't remember quite clearly. I divorced in 2013, or I separated in 2013, and I think it lasted till 2019.
Wow.
2020. So it was a long time. And there was nothing to fight over. So I didn't understand it. And it just seemed like the court system was this hungry thing that needed to be fed. And it was fed on conflict and money, or it ran on conflict and money, but nothing ever seemed to get resolved. I think the turning point was learning about how to navigate difficult situations like that. And one of the most effective tactics I deployed was something called gray rocking. I'm sure you know of that, David. But for the audience, anybody who doesn't know, gray rocking is it's easier said than done. But the idea is you don't give the person the emotional reaction that they're looking for. So if they're poking at you, if you're a terrible father, or I'm entitled to your money, or anything like that, something designed to get a rise out of you, you don't reply. And again, easier said than done. But just hold it together while you're talking to her, and then get in your car or close the door and then scream. Let the anger out then. But there was points where I would get a text from my ex and I would throw my phone across the room, luckily only at the couch, so it didn't smash or anything like that. And then I was like, why am I letting this woman run my life? Like, I'm giving all this time and attention and energy and money to this person who's just being miserable to me. Why am I allowing that to happen? So you start building these walls and you start getting as much distance as you can. And I really found gray rock to be helpful from that. So after a few years, I was able to buy my first house, and then we sold that house and bought the next house. And the less energy I put into my ex, the more energy I had for myself. And when we were in the thick of it, I was trying to save up a down payment for a house. I was trying to pay for lawyers, pay child support, and pay the rent, all of those things. I was doing that all at a new partner, but she was helping out. But all of those things largely fell on me. So I realized I didn't have enough energy for both to give it to my ex and to make more money. That's when I started putting up those walls, and I had more energy, and I locked in, and I was like, this is not going to be the thing that beats me. I worked 3 jobs at one point, not for very long because that's really hard to do, but I did it and managed to pay all those things. And I came out of my divorce ahead. I learned all kinds of lessons about myself. And I hit a point where I was like, I want to help other men because I know it can feel really lonely, and you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. What are some of the influences from your mentors that still resonate with you?
The most powerful one is to look for the gift in what you're going through. And that sounds, it sounds trite. It can sound trite when you're going through hell, but there's something in there. There's something specific to what you're going through that's for you. And as I said earlier, I was somebody who allowed people to push me around, and going through a divorce helped me find that thing, that center in myself where I could start to actually love myself, because I didn't before. I allowed other people to push me around because I didn't care about myself. It's going to be, that thing is going to be unique for every person. But if you can find it, that helps a lot. So look for the gift in your divorce. Sometimes it's the ability to make money. Sometimes it's the connection to your kids. Sometimes it's the relationship with your parents. Sometimes it's all of those things. But there's some nugget in there about that. And then gray rocking, like I mentioned before. And then another mentor of mine gave me these 3 rituals. And I like to mention this because I took this on. When things get complex, go to simplicity. So every day, 3 rituals, some sort of movement. So go for a walk, go exercise, do jumping jacks, dance, whatever it is, just move your body. Number 2, some sort of presence practice. And that can be just something to get you into the present moment. Meditation, exercise, again, could be chopping vegetables. It could be anything like that. Just something that gets you into the present moment. And I do martial arts because you can't worry about what's going to happen tomorrow, and you can't be worried about what happened yesterday if somebody's trying to punch you in the head. So something to get you into the present moment. And number 3, presence. Time in nature. Go for a walk outside. Go spend time outside. Reconnect with your breath. Feel the sun. Feel the fresh air. Don't just sit on your couch all day. So do those 3 rituals. Do them every day. They sound very simple, but they're very healing, and they will help to center you.
There's a quad effect that people talk about, and I've kind of realized that doing all these podcasts, and where the tip of the quad effect is self-love. So the self-love, self-care, self-respect, and self-esteem. And they're all cousins. And it's almost you can't have one without the other. How does that relate and go with your flow?
That, I would agree, that's one side of it. Learning to, let me start that again. With those 3 rituals, what you're doing is you're finding your way back to yourself. What happens in a divorce is somebody attacks you and you go, no, I'm not. And then you're outside of yourself and you're losing your identity. And what happens, I find, like I said, you're losing your identity. You get these new identities placed on you. You're no longer a father, you're a weekend father. Or you become an ATM because that's what the court decides you are. All your responsibility is to pay your child support or alimony. So you start to lose that sense of self. The 3 rituals I'm talking about, the idea is to bring you back into who you are. And when you find that, when you start putting in the work, when you do the exercise, when you reconnect with nature, when you do that meditation, when you do that presence practice, you are reconnecting to yourself. And that's when you can love yourself. And that's when you can respect yourself. And I forget what the other two are, but that's how you find yourself find yourself going back to who you are.
You talk about winning at divorce happens inside yourself. Can you elaborate on that?
Stop reacting. It's as simple as that. Your ex is poking at you. And when you react, you're giving away your energy.
Okay.
When you stop reacting, you can reclaim that time and attention and energy back to yourself. When your ex pokes at you and you react, that's an indication that there's a belief in yourself that is out of alignment. That's an emotion. She's poking at the emotion. She's hitting the bruise. So what I'm suggesting here is that you look at those bruises, look at those reactions, and figure out why you're having that emotional reaction to it. And what happens is you stop reacting and she stops poking at that, or she'll poke at it and won't get the reaction she wants. Yep. And she won't continue to poke at it. Now, there's a bit of a journey here. It's harder than it sounds because you have to look at yourself and realize why you're having that reaction. But not just that, she's going to poke at you expecting a certain reaction, and you're going to stop reacting to it. And then she's going to start looking for new reactions. She's going to start poking in new places. And she's going to find some. I promise you, she'll find some. But that's okay, because we can fix the next one, and we can work on the next one, and we can work on the next one.
It's almost the idea. So it's almost like taking your power back.
100% it's taking your power back.
Man. So what inspired you to create Divorce Daddy, and what's the mission behind it?
This is a really tough stat. And I know I had some really dark thoughts when I was going through divorce. Men have a suicide rate of 10 times what women do after a divorce. And I found that shocking. And that should be a crisis. That should be treated like a crisis. It is a crisis, but it should be treated like a crisis. And I don't, with the exception of the fine work you're doing and a few other pockets, I don't find it's being talked about on a big enough level. And I want to help with that. I'm at the place where I've healed mostly from my divorce. I don't have this even close to the same reactions I did to it before, but I want to help others. I think that's why I'm here. It feels like a mission. So the mission behind it is to stop reacting. Simple. Stop reacting to your divorce. Yep. Take your power back. Heal.
Do you find that with every coaching session or coaching others that you actually find something out about yourself again?
So much. So much. And I imagine that happens with you.
Every podcast, baby.
Everyone. Yeah. 100%. I think that I get something out of coaching just as much as the people I work with get out of it. You're co-creating something and you're working together. And I think that the clients I attract tend to have similar wounds to the ones I have. And so you're almost working through them together.
Yep. One of the things I did when I was a facilitator, those 8 years, one of the best feelings I had was someone who was one of my students and they became a facilitator too. That was like awesome. I can't even explain it. And I probably had 10, 12 people come out and become facilitators. You know, so it's almost like you're giving back in another role, but it was the coolest thing in the world.
You did a great job training, teaching, leading, facilitating.
Why do you think there's such limited support for men going through divorce?
Great question. I think that as men, we're taught to just take it, and we're taught to not show weakness. And I think that divorce takes place in a different battleground than we are used to. We're used to the boardroom or business or even something physical. But divorce is something completely different. It takes place in this emotional battleground. And we're not prepared for it. And I don't think we're trained for it. I don't think we're trained for it as growing up. And I think we're taught in relationships to hide a lot of our challenges. There's a great story by Brene Brown where a man comes up to her and says, why don't you work with men? And she says, I just don't work with them. And he says, that's convenient. And she's taken aback. And she says, and he turns and says, do you see that over there? That's my wife and my 3 daughters. They'd rather see me fall down off my horse than to lose. They'd rather see me die than to lose.
Wow.
And she was like really shocked by that. And then she works with shame. And she started working with men and realized that we do wall off, that we do not show weakness, not for each other, not for men. I think we can be somewhat vulnerable with each other, but I think it's primarily for our partners. We don't want to show that. It took a lot of work. I felt okay to be vulnerable again with my new partner. And we've been together a long time at this point, but still, it took a long time to get there. I don't know that you can have a relationship without being vulnerable at times. So there's almost this balancing act between not showing weakness, but allowing vulnerability. And it's this really fine balance point. I realize I've gotten off track here, but I think that's our challenge. I think we're being called forth to learn to heal and learn to evolve so that we can be somewhat vulnerable, but in a relationship while still standing strong.
That does make sense. How do you help clients avoid the bitterness and the anger and the angst in their co-parenting phase, not transferring that to their kids? Because that's so hard sometimes to don't act crazy in front of them. Don't talk crap about your ex. There's so many things you can do, but what do you push for your clients?
I usually work with them after a divorce, so not through the process. I'm usually helping them recover. So, and honestly, I made mistakes with my kids. I acted crazy in front of them. Sometimes you've just got to push it down and release it later. And that's harder than it sounds.
Oh, yeah.
It really comes down to sometimes you've got to use some of the tools I teach. Journal it. I know that sounds basic, but notice where you're reacting. And then you can take that, like I was talking about earlier, take that reaction and figure out why you're having that reaction. I'm very much make a mistake and then figure out how you made the mistake so you don't make it again. That's the type of person I am. But then I'll own that mistake. So there have been times where I've had a blow up, but I apologize to the kids afterwards. So I think it really comes down to owning your mistakes.
And it shows them that you're human when you make mistakes and you correct them. That's okay.
My oldest had he's 18 now. He had a bad breakup with his first girlfriend, and she did some pretty crazy stuff afterwards. And I think it showed him what I went through in a way.
Wow, that young. Wow.
Yeah, he was 16, I think, 15, yep. 16 when they broke up. And he became very selective about who he hangs out with now. It really taught him a lesson. But they need that. I think they need that leadership to understand that their parents are human and they're going to make mistakes. And it's okay to make mistakes, but you got to own it.
Yeah. I love the saying, you need to put your oxygen mask on first, because I use that quite a bit. And a lot of our men us men don't take care of ourselves first, but you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself.
100%. Go to the gym, go for those walks, go spend time in nature, do your meditation. Your kids are watching, and it's going to be the small moments where they realize who you are and the changes you've made.
Let's talk about forgiveness. The F word, baby. I got the smile. Rachel, my co-host in the Divorce Devil podcast, she calls forgiveness as not giving fucks, not giving a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense. What can forgiveness play a role in divorce recovery for a man?
I've got a controversial take here. I don't believe in forgiveness. I don't believe in forgiveness. And what I mean by that is I try to take as much responsibility for the position I got myself into. So I got myself into a toxic relationship, went through a toxic divorce. I am responsible for getting myself there. There's nothing to forgive to my ex. She was acting on her programming. I should have been the one awake enough to not get into that again. So that's one level. The next level down is, like I mentioned earlier, there's a gift inside of it. And my gift was rediscovering who I was and my self-esteem.
Okay.
My ex played a role in getting me to that place. Without her, I may have never gotten there. So thank God I had that experience. Thank your deity that I had that experience to get myself to really look at who I was and where all the places I was broken. Without having gone through that divorce, I would not have gotten there. So there's nothing to forgive. She played a role in getting me to that place.
Wow.
I agree with you, not having any fucks. Sure, 100%. But that's when you find that gift, right? Like that center.
It's almost like a thank you.
It's gratitude.
You turn forgiveness into a thank you.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting. Oh, yeah. I can't wait to tell Rachel this one, boy. She'll be all over that one. How has your experience as a father shaped the way you approach divorce coaching?
Great question. I think being a father is such a sacred role. And I think it's really underappreciated and undervalued in today's society. So I want to lift up fathers as much as I can. I've got a bunch of stats on my website about the importance of fathers. Kids with fathers involved in their lives, something like 80% less likely to go to jail, 75, I forget exactly what the numbers are, but 75% less likely to be pregnant, to get pregnant, way more likely to graduate high school. And that is true in two parent households, and it's true in father only households, but it's not true in mothers only households. And I'm not dumping on mothers. They play a role as well, but it's a different role. I also think that fathers are the ones who initiate their kids into adulthood. And I think that initiation isn't taken so seriously in our society today. And that can be demonstrated by how family court treats fathers as they go through it. I really believe that you're weakening the future of society. You're weakening those kids by taking fathers out of the homes, by turning fathers into ATMs, you're removing fathers from their kids' lives, and therefore their roles, and therefore all the benefits that come with it.
Okay.
And you're elevating mothers above them. So you're almost doing this. So what I'm trying to do is just equalize that playing field so that the father is as important as the mother.
Gotcha.
I know as a father, I bring different qualities than my ex does as a mother. And I want that to be reflected in every household, if possible.
I see. If you could share 3 pieces of advice with a man listening who feels completely lost after his divorce and trying to co-parent, what would it be?
Let me give you 5.
Hey, that's fine with me. Hook me up.
These are the steps I try to walk men through. So this is the process. Step 1, get emotional distance. So that gray rocking I talked about earlier, the 3 rituals, get emotional distance. Don't go over and fix her gutters. Don't sleep with your ex. Don't have discussions with her. Yeah. Get distance. Build that firewall. If you only talk through text, great. But you want to stop. You want to stop those. You want to distance yourself as much as possible so that you're not reacting. Step 2, build emotional awareness. Start to document where your bruises are. So if she tells you you're a terrible father, write that down. And you have a reaction, write that down. Because there is a definition in there. There's something you believe about yourself that's not true. My ex could tell me I'm a terrible father all day long. I could not care less. It just rolls off of me at this point. But she did that in the past, and I had a big reaction. So number 1, emotional distance. Number 2, emotional awareness. Start learning where your buttons are. Step 3, start taking responsibility for how you got where you are. Own what's yours. Don't blame your ex. There's a saying I like to use: when you point the finger at somebody, there's 3 more pointing back at you. So when you accuse somebody of being something, there's 3 more fingers pointed back at you, accusing you of the same thing. Number 4, this is where we get into the good stuff, but reconnect with your heart. That's your core self. Reconnect with yourself. And that's where you learn to love yourself. You learn to take your power back. It's not defensive. It's just operating from truth, from who you are as a human being. And it's in there, but it's buried under those emotions. And the only way you're going to get there is by starting to let go of some of those emotions, unlearning those lies that you told yourself. Number 5, start to build. Because you don't start to build when you're being attacked. Think about a castle. You don't build from outside of your walls, you build from inside your walls. So you set the walls and you learn what you can build and what you should be building.
Yep.
But then you start to build. And you're building from a place of strength at that point. You're not building from fear or reaction. Yeah, you can't rebuild while you're still bleeding. So you've got to take some time to heal and work on yourself.
Okay. All right, Jeff. That was interesting. I really appreciate it. You really duped me with forgiveness, man. You got me thinking, damn.
I don't believe that your ex really matters anymore.
Yeah.
It's time to let her go. She chose something else. You choose something else. Stop giving her your attention.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, want to tell the people where to find you on the internet, and I'll have that in the show notes.
divorce-daddy.com, and all my links are there.
All right.
And I've got a guide on how to start following those 5 steps and how to start recovering from a divorce.
There you go. Jeff, I really appreciate it, man. That was fun. Sometimes you never know where the podcast is going to go, and that was a blast. But I appreciate you taking time to talk to me and my fellow men. But hold on to the mic here.